Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Janet. It's lovely to see you. Good morning. Good morning. I believe we are now live on Facebook for day 2 of the Reconnection Revolution. Good morning, everybody. I am so excited for today's speaker. Marcus Pearce is somebody that I haven't interviewed for some years now, but he is just such a dynamic and exciting speaker, and somebody who recently returned from a trip to 2 of the blue zones. So Marcus will be with us at 10 o'clock. What I want to do this morning to get the ball rolling and to get us in the swing of this conversation is to talk about who you surround yourself with matters. This is a big conversation because the older we get, the more difficult it can feel to change the environment that we're in. And yesterday I spoke about environment and the importance of environment. But who we're surrounded with really does influence. There is, I can't remember who it was now, but somebody, I don't know if it was Tony Robbins, somebody a long time ago said, it is you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I can remember hearing that said, and at the time I was a single mum of 4 children. We lived on a farm, 4 small children. We lived on a farm. And I thought, well, I'm the sum of 4 children, under 8, and maybe I can throw the 2 alpacas in there to make up a 5th. It's a really interesting thing to ponder. So as you think about that, and you think about the 5 people that you spend the most time with, the 5 people that you spend the most time talking with, that influence our behaviors. The people we spend the most time with influence the way we eat, the way we move, our sleep habits, what we watch, what we tune into, the things we talk about, our interests. And so if I go back and think about my journey to being the woman I am today and the different chapters that I've gone through in my life, after I left school, I ended up a few years down the track, I ended up working in hospitality in Cairns, which is in northern Queensland here in Australia, and it's very much a tourist destination. And I worked in a nightclub called Non-Stop Rock nightclub, and it was, I can't remember the exact times now, but I used to work until sort of 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And then I called it my Coyote Ugly, for anyone that knows the movie, phase, where I danced on bars and served drinks. And it was a very, very fun life at that time. So it was a lot of drinking, a lot of socializing, a lot of lying in the sun, being as brown as a berry. I remember at that point, I had the confidence to wear a little thong, had a tiny little white triangle on my back, and everything else was brown as a berry. And when I arrived there, good morning, Min, as I arrived in Queensland, I was in a good place. I'd been, living with my parents. I had been eating really good food. I was pretty healthy and vital. And by the time I left Cairns, after living that lifestyle, a fairly nocturnal lifestyle, lots of junk food, lots of alcohol, not a lot of sleeping, I was sick, fat, and sad, is how I think of it. I had put on a lot of weight, eating all the wrong foods, drinking way too much, not getting enough sleep, not, doing the movement that I needed. And I was surrounded by people that were all making the same decisions, which made it all okay. It gives permission when everyone else is doing the same thing. It becomes the normal. This is just what you do. And so by the time I came home to my mum, I had I was quite sad. My anxiety levels had gone up, and I now understand that this is, the health of our gut is all tied to our brain. I was carrying a lot of excess weight, probably 20, 25 kilos extra. And mum took one look at me and went, yeah, we're going to have to do something about me and about that. And so she sent me off to see a naturopath. And this was one of the most pivotal changes in my life. It was one of those moments that was a page turner in my life journey. And as I sat down in front of this beautiful naturopath, I remember the feeling of feeling seen and heard, like somebody really was saying, I care about you and I want to help you get back on track. And I hope that the people tuning into this have had that experience, that you can think of somebody that has done that for you. And the reality is that for most of us, it's a pretty rare occasion. It's not that we don't have lovely, caring people in our lives, but somebody that just genuinely is there to support you to live your best life is 100% invested and paying attention and listening and supporting you with your unique challenges without judgment, without feeling embarrassed for being who you are, just feeling safe and supported. It's a magic, magic experience. So this was one of the first clues. This is a lesson in, this is how I want to feel. And it's how I want to make other people feel. And these are the kind of people that I want to be surrounded by. These are the kind of people that I want in my world. So that was my transition into studying naturopathy, functional nutrition, and becoming more authentically myself. So this was a shift of doing what I needed to do to fit in to the people I was around, to slowly learning who I was, who I wanted to be, the things that made me happy, the things that mattered to me. And it was a slow unfurling. It's not, it's not just a sudden thing that changes overnight. It's a learning about who we are and what matters most to us. And on that experience, you start to learn who you don't want to be, who you do want to be, how you do want to do things, how you don't want to do things, the kind of people that you want around you, the kind of people that pull you up and forward, the kind of people who support you to make the choices that make you come alive. When you think about what makes you come alive, there are things that are generally pretty accessible in our everyday lives. We tend to think of these things as things that are on the horizon, some elusive ingredient that we're waiting for this light bulb moment for it to land in our awareness. But the reality is, when we think about the moments, we've all been on this magical journey called life for long enough to have had the experiences where we know, where you feel really amazing. It's the difference between that mediocre existence and when you feel alive, when you feel happy, when you feel purposeful, when you feel like you get out of bed and it's like, today I get to. That feeling, as opposed to today I have to. Oh, that feeling. That's the mediocre, head down, bum up mode. Sometimes there's a head down, bum up mode that's necessary. You mentioned yesterday, sometimes you just have to get your taxes done. Some people love it. Most of us don't. Sometimes you just have to get the laundry done, or, like the things that are just the have-tos. But it's the things that are tied to being connected to a life purpose, connected to the things that make you go, oh yeah, I love doing this. I get to see this person. So who are those people been in your life that give you that pulled up and forward feeling? The people that you feel completely safe to be yourself. I call them my no filter friends. I have a small handful of no filter friends. They are my treasured friends. And we are all amazingly different. We do very different things. We dress differently. We are inspired by different things. But there's common threads of just this genuine love for each other. This doting love for our children that actually brought us all together. There is a common thread of a love of the natural world, a love for beautiful food that Mother Nature's provided for us, a love for flowers and being in the garden. They're things that tie us together. There's history. History is a great connector. There's care, there's safety, there's courage. There's, oh my gosh, are you really going to do that? There's laughter. There's silliness. It's a safe place to feel, to share the embarrassing moments. There's no need to hide anything. So when we think about, these people, I'm wondering if people can, really bring to mind, who are the people you're spending the most time with? And are they people that you aspire to be more like? It's an interesting question and an interesting thing to reflect. Three of my closest girlfriends that I spend the most time with and talking to taught me how to be a friend. They taught me how to be a friend. So in my experience of being at boarding school, I learned lots of things that didn't serve me well. Lots of things about how to gossip and criticize and judge, to exclude people and be very judgmental in who was included. I learned how to feel unsafe because there was this rule book, this unseen rule book, that if you got something wrong, you were going to be shut out. So it's this kind of walking on eggshells experience. A lack of trust. A rule book of stuff that you needed to do in order to fit in, to maintain your place in the circle. And that's what I thought friendship was. That's what I thought friendship was. And I struggled with friendships right up until I had my own children. And then these women slowly came into my life, and I learned how to be a friend. I learned how to be in a safe that felt really safe and nurturing and amazing and supportive. And so it was through those friends that I became the woman I am today, that I became the friend that I am today. It took time. And these are things that are not often spoken about when we think about who we're surrounding ourselves with. It plays into our, I'm just making sure that that's not, sorry, I just saw Marcus's name come up on my phone. I was making sure he wasn't looking for a link. The people that we surround ourselves with can put us on this slide in the values, in how we see ourselves as valuable in the world. So there are the people that may make you feel less valuable as a human if you don't have a certain degree, or drive a certain car, or live in a certain suburb, or have a certain size house, or wear certain labels of clothing. If you think about those people in your life, the people that are influencing you. So yes, yesterday I talked about social media and being mindful of who we are watching, who we're listening to, who we're following, because it's all part of the filter that feeds into how we see ourselves in the world and our value. I mentioned yesterday that I'm an avid student of Gene Keys, which is a fellow called Richard Rudd, and I picked the book up this morning. And in the front page, he has written, "May all whom you touch in this life, through your thoughts, your words, and your deeds, be transformed by the radiance of your presence." And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so perfect. That is so, so perfect for what we're talking about today. Because as I think about that naturopath, it was the radiance of her presence that transformed my life. And I'd love, as your homework today, as you think about this, to think about the people who have impacted your life. And they may be people that have crossed your path very briefly. I had a boyfriend many, many years ago called David, and he had a sister called Rachel. And I still remember Rachel's hugs. When she hugged me, it was just like this melting moment where she had, hi Marcus, where she had this ability to just make your heart melt with love. So as you come off this call today, you're going to have a million things that Marcus is going to share with you. But if you just want to write down this one thing from what I've shared with you first up, is to think about the people who have had an impact on your life, that have transformed the way you feel. Because who we are surrounded by matters. Who we're surrounded by matters. So I am so, so, so excited to introduce you to Marcus Pearce. For those that haven't met Marcus before, he started his journey, I believe, in journalism. I'm not sure if there was a career before journalism. Marcus, you can let us know if there was.
That was the first.
Yeah, the founder and director of it's not 100, it's the Wellness Couch, and the podcast is 100 Not Out. He's a sought after speaker on longevity and wellness, and the timing of this interview could not be more perfect, because you've not long come back from trips to Sardinia and Ikaria with the Blue Zones, and I think a lot of people are tuning into Live to 100, the Blue Zone story. But today I'm really excited to talk to Marcus predominantly about life purpose and meaningful work, because I as I did research for this particular interview, and I was looking at what's everybody talking about with the Blue Zones, and I'm fascinated that it seems to be about 99% diet. It's the one thing that people just gravitate towards as, I think, the magic pill. And it's interesting because when my path first crossed Marcus's was many, many years ago at an event for the Wellness Couch. And that was when my obsession was 100% diet, after studying naturopathy and functional nutrition. And, I felt like the answer to everything was through food. I've since learnt that it's not. And Marcus was one of the first people that introduced me to a different way of looking at well-being. So thank you for being with us, Marcus.
Oh, Edwina, thanks so much for having me, and to everyone watching today. It's a joy to be with you. And Yeah, look forward to having a few curly conversations around nutrition and longevity and blue zones and lifestyle and all the pieces that go into that puzzle. And again, life purpose and meaningful work being one of those big ones.
Yeah. So I would love to start with a little bit of your story and how I'm reading the first chapter of your fabulous book again just this morning, and I love your story of how you came to be doing this work, and starting with I think it was cordial and rice bubbles for breakfast. the journey, the trajectory, all these different chapters. So if you could start with how you came to be so fascinated with this work, let's just start there.
Yeah, sure. No, I definitely did not think I'd be doing this work when I was at school. I'm actually doing a talk for career advisors in a couple of months, and I was telling them, that this has not been the work I've been doing since year 12. I was definitely a sports nut and still am, but always thought I'd be the next Eddie Maguire or Bruce McAvaney or something like that. And so I studied journalism and worked in the sports media for 6 or 7 years. And then it really started to shift when I met my now wife, Sarah, who's a chiropractor and health professional. And when I met Sarah, I was at Channel 9 working at the AFL footy show back in the day. Like, this is 2005. And, I'm smoking and drinking Red Bulls. And as you said, mint slices for morning tea and Cocoa Pops and Vegemite toast and hot chips and chicken schnitzels and all the things that are just, we call the standard Australian diet. And Sarah's all organic and doesn't put any, anything not conventional, in her body, and she's all very what we would call health and wellnessy, and I was the opposite of that. But I really got caught by the health bug. It was really quite attractive in many ways to see how great health manifested itself in life. And then, to cut a long story short, Sarah and I went very deep down personal growth, did a lot of Tony Robbins together. We became vegetarian, and then we became vegan, and I left the media. We went to Europe. We lived in Ireland for a year in a little thatched cottage. I was shaving with avocado because, as my vegan diet told me, I had found the fountain of youth and great life. And again, I was enlightened at 25 years of age. And as all enlightened 25-year-old vegans do, they shave with avocado whilst living in Ireland, the place of no avocado trees. Of course, the avocados came from Kenya. Sorry to all those food miles and fossil fuels I burnt whilst shaving with avocado. And after doing that for 6 or 7 years and realizing how wrong I was and how much I'd been barking up the wrong tree, stumbled upon a book called Healthy at 100, which is somewhere. I was just here. This is the book that changed my life, because this is a book by a man called John Robbins, who was the heir to the throne of Baskin Robbins ice cream. And he is now what you would call probably the seminal vegan author on the planet. And I read this book thinking that it would, it's again a confirmation bias book. I read this book thinking it would tell me everything that I was doing was correct and spot on and right. And I got 2 pages into the introduction, and John Robbins referenced a study done by the Yale School of Public Health, and it interviewed over 600 people over the course of 20 years, and it asked them the same questions at periods throughout that 2 decades. And the questions included things like, as you age, you become less useful, agree or disagree. As you age, you realize your best years are behind you. Agree or disagree. As you age, you realize you're more of a burden on family, on society. Agree or disagree. As you age, you realize it's all downhill from here. Agree or disagree. And what I found fascinating with this study was that the people that agreed with those statements, that it was all downhill from here, that the best years were behind them, the old days were the best days, that they were a burden on family and society, they died 7.5 years earlier than the people that had an empowered view of the now and their future. And this was remarkable for someone at the time who was raging vegan, and then I was exercising and everything and all the rest. It was like, hold on a minute, you're telling me that my belief system around getting older is more important than my genes, my social circus, how much money I have in the bank, the job that I do, my family setup, my exercise, and my diet? And this was quite a light bulb epiphany type moment And that was the beginning of my research. That was really the beginning of my research. That was back in 2010. That then generated into a podcast 3 years later called 100 Not Out. I think we're Australia's longest running podcast on longevity and aging well. As you said, Edwina, it led to the book, which came out in 2021. And ever since 2016, I've been going to this little Greek island, Ikaria, called the island where people forget to die, which again, a lot of people have been learning about recently with this Netflix series, and more recently been going to Sardinia. So yeah, lots to talk about when it comes to meaningful work, but in the context of meaningful work that allows us to age gracefully. So yeah, looking forward to it. That's the long version of my short version of the story.
Yeah. I think life purpose is a fascinating thing for people. You know, that it's such a hot topic, and people are wanting, you know, as a vision building mentor, I do vision boards with people every year. It's a big thing that we do at the beginning of the year. And when we look at life purpose, there seems to be this reaching for something that's, you know, an elusive secret that's on the horizon. So I would love to talk about that and how people discover, you know, as you know, I don't know how many people watching this have actually tuned into this latest series of the Blue Zones Live to 100. But I think it's an interesting question to ask. You know, we have this goal of I want to live to 100, but how do you want to live to 100? Because there's a lot of people that are living out the last, you know, years of their life in a nursing home with very little purpose to keep them alive as such. So how do we answer this elusive, or how do you answer this elusive question, Marcus?
Well, before I answer that elusive question with a very simplistic and underwhelming answer, you're spot on. Living to 100 is something that most people watching this we're going to have to recognize is not this amazing achievement, particularly in Australia. It's becoming more and more common. A newborn born today is a 50% chance to live to 100. Someone in their 40s, like myself, is a 1 in 6 chance. People in their 60s and 70s, you know, just like a 1 in 8, 1 in 9, maybe 1 in 10, depending on their health status. But it's not as uncommon as it was even 20 or 30 years ago. What we have to be really conscious of, and this is the stuff that never gets spoken about, is that, you know, depending on the stats that you look at, Australia are 3rd, 4th, maybe 8th on the ladder for longevity, which means our lifespan, you know, on average 84, 85 years of age. And we know a lot of people in their 70s and their 80s, and we know people in their 90s, and I've interviewed hundreds of people in their 100s. But what in Australia is our biggest crisis is that statistically, our quality of life does decline from around 71 years of age. And we always hear it, oh, you don't want to become the statistic. This is the statistic you don't want to become. At 70.9, let's call it a month before your 71st birthday, maybe you've been working for 12 months and you're ready to retire and you've got international travel ready, or you're going to start playing golf, or you've got the most incredible life scheduled for like down there, and you're working or you're doing something you're not really enjoying, not living life on purpose, hoping to just get to the end, and then it all goes belly up. And this is a story that is far too common. There are many ways that this story manifests, but we've got to be very mindful. I was saying to someone the other day who's in their early 70s, that is the cliff statistically, where a lot of people begin to go down the medical cascade, where their social life becomes waiting rooms in, you know, surgeons and specialists and hospitals and all the rest of it. And that is the cliff that we have to be mindful of. And the best way to be mindful of that cliff is to get to work in your 20s and 30s and 40s. And if that's already gone, then get to work in your 50s and 60s. And if that's gone, get to work at your 70s and 80s, because that's what we've got to be mindful of. Now, to your question, Edwina, everyone has the same life purpose, as much as we hate that. And all of our purpose in life is to help people. And that's as simple as it is. Your purpose in life is to help people. My purpose in life is to help people. Now, what makes us all unique and different is the way in which we all wish to help people is incredibly different. And that is the best part of humanity. That is the best part of being a human being. And the way that you and I will want to help people over the course of our lives will change multiple times. My way used to be to help people be entertained watching sport. And then I was like, well, how many strained hamstrings and torn ACLs and players having affairs on their partners, is that really helping people in the world? Then it became managing a chiropractic center for 6 or 7 years. Then it became running a podcast network and events and sharing this exceptional life blueprint longevity message. And now it's a lot more lifestyle based. My purpose in life is helping people rise from mediocre to magnificent in all areas of their life and not just one, so that they're truly living their exceptional lives. But in 10 years time, it might be different again. But at all facets of life, it's helping people.
Yep.
Now, this is an adult conversation. I don't want to talk about this in the context of children, because that's the whole different thing. Their purpose in life is just to have fun, regardless of the consequences, and to grow and to learn. But ours as adults is to help people. We might hear it as being of service and so on. But for everyone listening going, what's my purpose in life? I don't know. It's so overwhelming. I'm like, well, for one, get off the socials, get off the noise of everyone else's life purpose and everyone else's just noise. And go into the quiet space of your life and decide and work out, how do you love to help people? And again, you know, I do some deep work on this, because it's not as simple or as easy to find the answer when, again, we've been born into this world of overwhelm. There are different stages and it's deep work. And as I said, I don't want to disappoint people, but you can't just figure this out in 5 minutes. Like, it just doesn't happen that way. You can figure out in 5 minutes that your purpose in life is to help people, but then finding out how you love to help people. For example, are you an introvert or an extrovert? You know, if you're an extrovert, you don't want to be a health professional seeing one person at a time for an hour at a time and seeing 8 people a day. You will go batty. If you're an introvert, you don't want to be me speaking on stages and traveling and just being in the whirlwind and the buzz. Like, you want small groups of people. So you probably love being a health professional where you can just see one person at a time, whether it's in 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Like, that's the nuance of this. There are so many nuances, whether it's shift work, which would drive me batty, but other people love it. There are others, whether it's like you want to be a business owner, or do you want to be a team member helping other business owners make their work more worthwhile. Like, there are so many different ways to do it. But again, whether you want to work at a petrol station or you want to run $1 billion company, the whole idea is that we're helping people. And this is what we must get clarity on as human beings, so that we can essentially not only live our exceptional lives, but help others do that as well.
So on these, you know, these little islands in these tiny communities, what are their life purposes? What are they doing? What are their acts of service, their jobs?
Yeah, well, theirs are all very, what I would call innate. Like, you don't wake up in Ikaria and going, right, you know, what's my purpose in life? How do I move exceptionally? How do I create this peer group? What do I eat? Do I go carnivore or vegan? Do I go gluten-free and so on? You know, how do I live my great family life? Like, for them, it's not this thing that they have to learn. It's innate. It's embedded into their society. So I'll give you some random little things there. So in Ikaria, there is no flat land. This little Greek island, which is near the Turkish coast, there is no flat land. It's undulating. I've never seen a local do a yoga course. I've never seen a local doing Pilates. I've never seen a local, I've never seen an F45 or a CrossFit in Ikaria. There's no big businesses. I've never seen a Woolies or a Coles. I've seen little mini marts and small grocers. I've never seen people getting drunk in Ikaria. In Ikaria, they love getting tipsy. They love alcohol. They love their wine, but they would never get drunk, because to get drunk means there's something that you're masking. So what's going on? Marcus is drunk. So there's something going on in his life. What's going on? We better find out and talk to his wife or his, or his sisters or his aunties or his uncles. And this is how, like, their life works. Their villages. So Ikaria is an island of about 7,500, 8,000 people. Let's say it's 100 villages of 80, or maybe they might say it's 80 villages of 100 each. So everyone in each village knows each other. So there's no crime. There's literally no crime. The last reported crime that I know of in Ikaria was a couple of kids breaking into a mini mart and and they felt so guilty that they owned up to their mum or dad the next day. Like, that's the crime. When they have social festivals called panegyrides, where there's like 1,000, 2,000 people there are no police, there's no security, because they know that people aren't there to get drunk. There might be a fight, but if it's a fight, it could be amongst, 23-year-old males, and it's just a bit of bravado. It's not like gangs and so on and so forth. Their purpose in life, which again, they're living in their community. Now, if they've grown up in Ikaria and then they may have gone to Athens, or they may have traveled the world and then they've come back, which that happens all over the world. If you've got kids and they've left your home and they're now on the other side of the planet, it's very, very likely, not always, that they'll come back, because this is this boomerang effect in many cultures. But in Ikaria, they're there really to keep their community happy, healthy, safe, and well. So their purpose is on that. Now, where we stay in NAS, which is where the National Geographic, if you watch the series on Netflix, episode 3 features Ikaria. The people you see in Ikaria are the people that we hang around with. So they're in the village called NAS. And you got Thea Perikos, who was born in Michigan to Greek Icarian parents, has married Ilya, who born and raised in Ikaria. She decided she wanted to raise their 2 kids in Ikaria and not Michigan. And now her son runs the restaurant. Thea is very keen on this longevity connection. She loves being this bridge between the rest of the world and learning what's happening in Ikaria. So her purpose in life is to help people. It helps the locals, her doing her thing, but also helps us as human beings being able to go over there and see what, Thea is a great bridge to learn how to do it. So what I'm trying to say is everyone has a different purpose, but the interweaving nature of it is to help people. And that's what I want people to really own here is, are you doing work that you love that is helping people? And there's a few different things in there, but that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I'm thinking of one of my old school friends who does ceramics. She breaks up, what's it called when you break up bits of pottery?
It depends. You could call it kintsugi, which is a Japanese reference, and then they line it with gold and it's
that's the fixing the broken things. I'm going to forget what it's called, but we're all getting
mosaic. You're looking for mosaic again. It depends. Mosaic.
That's the one. 2000 mosaics. So we're all getting together at the end of November for to create mosaics. So that's something that she's found is her passion, and now she pulls people together doing that. There's so many incidental things that we can come up with, whether it's something that we're making a living from or just a way to pull people together over
there. And at different stages of life, again, life purpose changes. I have clients who are finishing income generating work. And now they're actually going, well, is my purpose to be with the grandkids? And they're wrestling with it, because it's like, every Friday for the last 40 years, I've had money dropping in the account. And people then go, is my self-worth based on money dropping in the account? Or, is it on living? Because as a grandparent, your lifestyle and your life is such a massive example to the grandkids. And a lot of people underestimate this, but the grandparent example is massive. And, one of my clients has been wrestling with this. And the more it goes, the more she's realizing how incredible it is for her to be living a great life so that her grandchildren can see what a great life lives. Because as I said to this client the other day, because your children are pretty stressed out right now, like the parents of young kids, they might be finding it really hard to live their best life. So you want the kids to have an example through the grandchildren of what a great life looks like as well. Obviously, it's important for the parents, but again, easy said than done, particularly when parents are going through this for the first time in the modern world. So I think it's really important that we recognize that, our life purpose is not just about our career, but at certain phases, it's heavily career-based. Like at my phase of life, I'm 42, 4 young kids. My life purpose right now is very heavily career-based. But my in-laws, who live 2 doors up the road, they're in their 70s. They've got the kids for a few hours this afternoon. Their purpose in life is helping the family. Sarah's whole family has now moved up here to the Northern Rivers, and Rob and Jill, they just love having their kids and their grandkids around, and that fills their juice and fulfillment up from a life purpose perspective, because they're helping us, they're helping their family, and that gives them that same level of inspiration.
Yeah. Going back to the questions, I think you said it was in that first book that you read where they're asking people what they see the value of getting older is. I can't think what the question was.
Or what, as you age, you become less useful, or
that theme. And it's interesting, in the last few weeks, I've had two women who are both 102 come into my radar, who are still living extraordinary lives. And my mum, who's going to be 90 next year, is still living an amazing life. And when I look at these women, I've got this fabulous picture of where I'm going, like I'm halfway.
Yeah.
which creates a very different picture to when you go to the movies. And in Australia, we're looking at advertisements for retirement villages for 50 people turning 50 plus. Yeah. And it's like, goodness, the messaging, this is who we're surrounded by, makes such a massive difference. Because if you're surrounded by people at 50 that are planning their retirement village life,
yeah,
it's a different.
Well, many Australians don't have great mentors for aging well. They don't want to, so many people I work with, they don't want to age like their parents. Their grandparents, sometimes yes, sometimes no. But if I ask people, who are your, aging well mentors, and people can think of this right now and you can write them down. I can see Janet there writing something down, like, think of who your aging gracefully mentors are.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I go, they think, is it Helen Mirren? Is it Sean Connery? It's like, well, no, don't. Why Hollywood? Like, do you have a neighbor down the road? Is it Bob or Betty down the road? A lot of people do not have, and if they have one, then it's one. It's not 100. We don't have an overwhelming sense that you think of social media and how overwhelming is the let's say the influencer mindset of your body or your looks or your wallet, your wealth. Like, there's an overwhelming number of people telling you how to look, how to think, how to feel, all the rest of it. How many mentors are there going, how to age gracefully, how to be thriving at 90, 80, 100, whatever it is? Like, they're few and far between. But this is it. But amongst all of us, particularly in Australia, is that we have a longevity crisis. And that is that we are all such good chances to get to 100, and we don't have a real roadmap or group of, mentors ahead of us, lighting a path for us. And that's why, again, I feel so strongly about the work that I do, because I feel like every person I interview that's living a great life, I'm like, right, there's another mentor, there's another light on the path, there's another way or shape forward for someone to go, right, there's a future direction. Because a lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, I'm getting old now, I'm in my 40s. I'm like, what? I've just turned 50, it's all downhill from here. I'm like, what? You just see how culturally embedded these one-liners are. It's like, can you hear yourself talk?
Yeah.
And this type of vocabulary is literally a 7.5 year life sentence. Like, let's just chop 7.5 years off your life right now, talking about, you're too old to do this and you're too old to do that. I'm like, oh, what a load of BS. But that's what we're being fed. That's what we're being fed. So we've got to be very mindful of it.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, the homework in that little piece is to get a list of people that are inspiring you, who are living in their 80s, 90s, and 100 and beyond. And I think you've got a whole list of them in your podcast with people.
I was going to say, if you don't know where to start, just go back. Again, if people have been watching the series on Netflix, there's a lady, Vaso, in Ikaria, and I think Dan Buettner says to her, like, what's your favorite tea? And she's like, red wine. I'm like, we interviewed Vaso literally, or maybe it was 10 weeks ago, literally sitting on her patio out the front, just talking about her life. And the message was, Vaso's been living by herself for years, but she's not lonely. So she lives alone, but she's not lonely. And that was a big message. So, it was probably, we're up to episode 545. So let's say it was maybe episode 538 or something of 100 Not Out. But if people just go back and into our archives, there's so many mentors there that will give people this spring in their step around getting older, particularly if they're feeling a little bit nervous around aging, that's for sure.
So how does she overcome that? Because I think, there's so many of these
Oh, it's a simple
conversations.
answer. It's a very
Yeah.
simple answer. It's community. So
Yeah.
if she wants to see someone, she'll walk out the door and knock on their door.
Yeah.
Like, as simple as it sounds, people these days are nervous. Oh, what if they're not home? Or what if I interrupt them? Or, what if they don't want any neighbors right now? Like, well, the only way to find that out is to knock on the door. It's always been that way. We're too scared to say no. If someone knocks on the door, we're too scared to say, sorry, not right now. It's like, that's got to be okay. We've got to bring back a bit of that, for want of a better term, awkward social setting sometimes. But I maintain this all the time. Socializing requires leadership. To be a great socializer, to have a great social life, you must have leadership qualities, which means you've got to make the phone call. You've got to walk over to the neighbor. Your neighbor is not going to knock on your door and say, I made you a cake. Do you want it? They're just not going to do it anymore, but you can do it. It's got to be a little secret. This little secret cult of exceptional socializers going out there, making the phone call to friends that they haven't seen in years. Maybe you've been busy raising kids and you lost contact with your girlfriends from school, or maybe you retired or got made redundant and you lost your social circle in the workplace, but you can still call those people and catch up and play golf or go and watch a movie or go out for dinner or have them over. Like, there are just, I know it sounds simple, but in my mind, it's so obvious. But we've lost this art of COVID in particular. We lost our social muscle, our muscle atrophied. People are still struggling with this. They're unsure of like inviting people. Even I see with events, like people, they're too scared to even like commit to events because of what if something happens? We lost all faith in the future in COVID. Like, why would I book something for 2 weeks' time when like there could be another COVID breakout next week, or there could be another something? Like, we've lost this almost confidence in the future, and we've almost lost that confidence in community. I feel in many ways that there's elements to show that it's coming back, but for our own individual sakes, we have to be the leader in our social lives. And if you're lonely, there's only one way to work that out, and that's to go and, again, knock on someone's door, make a phone call, even if it's just to ask for help. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Or I've got excess tomatoes in the garden. Can I cook you up something? Or take over a bottle of preserve.
Totally.
Or, anything.
Totally. So good. Yeah. When you're going on a holiday, empty out your fridge and give the remnants to your next door neighbor, and don't worry about if they're gluten-free or they're vegan or whatever. They'll just chuck it out if they're not using it anyway. But just start the social conversation.
Yeah.
Just simple little things.
Treating other people as you want to be treated. How nice would it be for somebody to actually pick up the phone and call you? How many of us just wish somebody would pick up the phone and call us, because everyone's thinking, I don't want to interrupt, or they might be busy.
Oh, no, interrupt.
Exactly.
Totally. Interrupt.
So we can't not just touch on food. We've hinted at it. And I think what I'm looking at as I read through all the stuff that people are talking about with the blue zones. Now everybody's saying it's okay to drink wine every night.
With a few dot points or a few asterisks. But yes.
I love these great swings that society does as we all go paleo and then we all go vegan, and like it's just watching the next wave of so now everyone's going to be on legumes and plant-based. But having watched this, having been in this world for long enough now, tell us your wisdom on food and diet, Marcus.
Well, you know what I love about this, and also, again, putting on my old journalism hat, like the Blue Zones book, which is just here. The Blue Zones book, for everyone wondering, we see it on Netflix and we think, oh, there's this new series. But let's just be really clear here. This book was written in 2008, and we're in the year 2023. So this isn't a new thing. This book, which was, again, the research was funded by National Geographic. This is not new. So just because it's new to people watching doesn't make it new. But you like you said, Edwina, the human brain loves a shortcut because we're making so many decisions every day. So it's a shortcut. It's a great shortcut to go, oh, I'm going vegan or vegetarian. Because in many ways, it's like, oh, I just don't have to think about meat now. Do I feel like chicken or pork or beef or lamb? It's like, oh, one less decision to make, So what we've got to be mindful of with food, and I talk about this all the time with the Blue Zones diets as well. They're all so different. Like having just come back from Icaria and Sardinia, we Damien and I did what I call a reconnaissance, because it was just Damo and I, because we're taking a group to Sardinia next year for the first time. We were due to go in 2020. It was all booked. My little heartbreak story was COVID cancelled our first group trip to Sardinia. But the good thing was we went there this year to just do we go there for 10 days, but we went there for 5 days and did everything in double speed. And here's the thing, we went so fast. The Sardinian Mediterranean diet is so different to the Icarian Mediterranean diet. But in our little country of Australia, we just say we're on the Mediterranean diet. But they're so different. Like in Sardinia, it's largely like lamb, right? Whereas in Sardinia, in Icaria, it's largely goat. But neither of them are they're not that red meat heavy. Like to weird people out a bit, in Sardinia, they eat horse, right? And they also have a lot of seafood. In Icaria, they have a lot of seafood, particularly if they're living on the coast. But then as the further you go away from the coast up the mountains, then obviously less seafood because less availability. Yeah. Now, you've got Sardinia, which is more rich in, let's just call it pasta. Icaria, like less so. Icaria, lots and lots of herbal teas. Sardinia, I noticed way more coffee than I did in Icaria. They're just so different. But we say Mediterranean diet. Then you go to Okinawa. There's all this again, and Dan Buettner, who is very heavy into a more plant-based, like no meat diet these days, which again I disagree with, but that's okay. You look at them; they will have fish. They will have soy, but they won't have much fruit because there's not much fruit growing in Okinawa. They will have a lot more vegetables. Then you go over to Nicoya in Costa Rica, like they're having corn, and a lot of it, but that's very local to them. Everyone's doing local. This is the thing. So I don't think I have an Asian body in my bones. I don't think I have an Asian bone in my body. And I feel a really big pull to Europe. I know I have ancestry in Europe from England and Scotland. And I know I've got Lebanon on 2 generations up on my mum's side. I know I've got some Germany in there. That's my genetic pull. So the Mediterranean diet has a lot more attraction to me. If I never ate rice again, I'd be fine. I have no great desire for it. Then I have other people that are like, I'd die if I didn't have rice. We've got to be very mindful of this from a diet perspective. I think it's important that we look to our ancestry. We look at our local environment. Again, I used to shave with Kenyan avocados whilst living in Ireland. There's nothing smart nutritionally about that. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah. So we've got to be very mindful of this. You don't eat the Mediterranean diet if you are 100% Japanese. I just don't think it makes sense. Yeah. And the reason why Okinawa is hardly a blue zone anymore is because the centenarians' children and grandchildren are all eating KFC and Macca's, because the military base that Okinawa is, thanks to the wars and everything, has meant that the elderly want to keep their traditions alive. But their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren live in this modern world of fast food and so on. They're eating all the pies and they're sick as a result. There's centenarians burying their children and grandchildren, which is incredibly sad. But that's what we've got to be mindful of with food, is just the local side of it and our ancestry. And not to get sucked in by a Netflix series or a book or anything. We've got to it's like I said about life purpose. We've got to own who we are as an individual, not what some other health professional, no matter how awesome they are and how much we love them. And what I actually loved about the series, Edwina, is that I don't think Dan Buettner pushed plant-based too hard, even though personally he does. I think he did a great job. Even in the Okinawa episode 1, I thought, oh gosh, is he going to go hard on purple sweet potato? Is he going to start telling us all that we need to have purple sweet potato? Please don't do it. Please don't tell us. And thankfully he didn't, and I was like, oh, sweet relief that it didn't go down that path. But you're right. The obsessive personalities listening will start getting their legumes by the bucket load at their bulk outlets, and I'll start making all types of soups, and because yes, legumes are common to all cultures. Fancy that. Anyway,
everyone's going to need new gas outlets in their house. I think
Yes.
the common thread that I just always love to reiterate is real food. That's the common thread. If you decide to
Exactly.
go vegetarian, vegan, paleo, whatever it is,
None of them say junk food. None of them say
Exactly.
junk food.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget Cindy O'Meara, who's my nutrition guru. That your superfood is what you go and pick in the backyard. It's the parsley that you've grown in your garden. And I think, you know, having just watched this this last Blue Zone series, it is that, I mean, the connection to that is actually getting your the physical action of being in the garden as much as picking the actual.
Yeah, that's the number one longevity exercise, gardening.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is my mum. She's got the most gorgeous garden and she's about to turn 90 and she's
And she's got the physical vitality to show for it because the garden's kept her physically strong because she's had to squat and bend and kneel and pull and push and all of these other things. Yeah.
All of that. Thank you so much for your time, Marcus. I know that you've got your quiz on your website that I think is going to give everybody a great picture of where they're at. Maybe if you just give people, we didn't actually cover your
My triangle inside a circle.
Yeah. So maybe you
sure.
just touch on that. So when people go to the quiz, they've got a picture of what that is.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So I suppose a lot of my research has looked at what is it that creates longevity and then what is it that creates quality of life inside of that longevity. There's no use having longevity without the quality of life to enjoy it. So for people that want to do a really quick, 2-minute audit on their life, if they go to my website, marcuspearce.com.au, they'll see on the menu, take the quiz, and they'll be asked to rate each of these 8 areas of life out of 10. So longevity is largely your life purpose, your movement, and your social life, which hopefully gives people some relief because there are so many centenarians that have never really mastered their nutrition, for want of a better term, and they are still here to tell the tale, and they have great quality of life, and it's largely because they have done work that they have loved, they have moved regularly, and they have had great people around them. The great superfoods of life are inspiration from your purpose, vitality from your movement, and great connection from your social life. Loving where you live, having people around you that bring out the best in you, having a shoulder to cry on from time to time, and so on. Like, these are the simple things in life that a lot of people are bypassing for the more complex solutions. Like a 28 ingredient smoothie that'll make you live forever. So, but the bridge to longevity and quality of life is undisputedly nutrition. Yeah. So if you want to do longevity really well, then it's great if you've got great nutrition, but it's not just what you eat. My big thing is we've got to master the art of eating intelligently. So we've got to look at who are we eating with? So many of us, particularly if we live alone, we just have this excuse that we're eating by ourselves all the time. There are ways to master this. How are we eating? I know people with the best diets that do not chew their food, and they are always eating in a rush. And so their poor little digestive systems are working so hard because they've pretty much got a whole steak to digest that hasn't been chewed, masticated in any way. But they're going to tell me that it's grass-fed, grass-finished, and, they diced and sliced it themselves. Well, I'm like, you've still got to digest it. So I'm
thinking of my 23-year-old son. I call him the human vacuum cleaner. It's like he just sits in front of food and he just inhales.
Yeah, it's like he's gone toothless. Toothless tiger. So we've got to master how to eat, who to eat with, when to eat, why are we eating? Who cares if your chocolate is like, I don't know, dairy-free and like, what is it, fair trade and raw and everything else? If you're having a block of it because you can't stand your work, you hate your friends, you feel unloved, you're broke and you're bitter and twisted. Like, I don't care how good your chocolate is. You've got to go and work on those other areas of your life. So we look at nutrition. Then I look at family life. Again, a lot of people go, shouldn't family come first? I'm like, well, it doesn't for longevity. It's really important for quality of life. You want your Christmas days and your birthdays and, weddings and even funerals to be beautiful occasions. So that gets amplified when your family relationships are awesome. Then I look at growth, which I could also call fun. Because when you're doing things that are fun, I love table tennis. I might have a hit to myself after this, just to loosen the limbs. And I think we've got to do things in our life that are fun. And so many people, I largely work with women, and it's sad how many of my clients, and again, I think a lot of us, not just women, but a lot of us in society now see having fun as like this guilty pleasure, you know? And it's like, as a dad of 4 kids, and I look at all I want to do is have fun. When in life did we get taught to stop having fun? And, you know, whether it's sewing, whether it's craft, whether it's playing tennis, whether it's swimming, dancing, whether it's traveling, anything that is like indulgent, we're like, oh no, I shouldn't do it. You know, like, for me, like I love reading. I love AFL. I love traveling. What is it that you love to do that you've just, you know, it's not going to make you any more money. It's not going to be like this practical outcome. It's just fun. For some people, I got a client that, it sounds terrible, but they call it stitch and bitch. They go and stitch and they just vent, you know, just, I'm sure they talk about good things as well, but she loves it. It's this getting together of women, and they just get to talk the problems of their life out. And I'm like, it's therapeutic. Like in Okinawa, in the series, people watch episode 1, it's the Moai. The Moai gets together. Sometimes it's 4 or 5 people that have come together from birth. Other times they get together in midlife or even in later life. But that peer group, like, and when you're doing that through fun, you know, whether it's through sport or you want to go bushwalking or hiking or meditating or breath work, whatever. Like whatever is fun, just got to do more of it. Wealth is a really important one. You know, I just simply say spending less than you earn and investing the difference. And we have a problem with this in Australia. We are shockingly consumed. We're just over consuming. I think a lot of us can admit to that. We've got so many choices on how to spend our money. I often hear Sarah's mum and dad tell us about when they were our age, if they wanted to go out for dinner, all they could have was the local Chinese or the pub. Yeah. You know, now we've got, you know, Vietnamese, Japanese, Thai, Indian, modern Australian. We've got all different types of oat milk, almond milk, you know, this and that. I want a half this, a half that. We've got so many different things that we're spending our money. How many Netflix, Disney Plus, Stan, you know, Apple TV, Paramount Plus. How much do you want to spend? Like we can just spend and spend and spend. We've got to master this art, control thy expenditure. And then the 8th area is spirit. The circle that I put around my triangle is spirit. We've got to put our heart and soul into every area of our life. So if people want to do that audit, it's purpose, movement, social. And then it's nutrition, family, growth, and wealth. And then it's spirit. You'll get a score out of 80. And it's just a good audit to see where you're at. And then it'll ask you to identify a gap. And that just provides a roadmap for, as corny as it sounds, Edwina, how to make the rest of your life the best of your life.
It's not corny. That's nothing corny about that. That's the mission we're all on, whether consciously or unconsciously. That's what we're all aiming for.
That's right.
It was the book that was inspired this whole series is called Lost Connection by Johann Hari, and he talks about the opposite of addiction being connection. So when we're addicted to shopping, food, pornography, social media, whatever it is that we're using to distract ourselves, we're using ourselves to distract ourselves from the fact that we're disconnected from the things that matter most. And Marcus has just given you this beautiful blueprint, magic. So I'll pop a link in so that everyone can go and do that quiz to get a little insight into where they're up to. Thank you so much, Marcus. This has been a fabulous conversation.
Oh, thanks for having me, Edwina, and for everyone on today. I truly hope that the rest of your life is the best of your life, and yeah, really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll see everyone again tomorrow. Much love and bye for now.